Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. So this is one of those times in which I take no joy in being right. Before filming Monday's show, I deleted a bunch of the script I had written about the left-wing Philadelphia queer activist and vocal Soros DA supporter named Josh Krueger, who was shot to death inside his own home last week. I deleted my speculation about his murder out of respect for the victim because I figured that I probably shouldn't speak ill of the dead unless I had something more solid to go off of than just pattern recognition. But now the family of the suspected killer, who is still on the run from cops, is turning over evidence that detectives are calling disturbing. The family of 19-year-old Robert Davis are alleging that 39-year-old Josh Krueger started a sexual relationship involving drugs with the teen while he was still underage, at about 15 years of age. They claim that the shooting was the result of Krueger threatening to post sexually explicit videos of the teen online for blackmail. The family further say they remember seeing the name Josh flash across the teen's phone from time to time, but that they were initially told that Josh was the brother of an older white woman who worked for the government that the teen told them he was seeing after meeting the woman online. Turns out, according to what they're now telling the Inquirer, that older white woman was really Josh the whole time. See, I told you the fact that the teen had access to Krueger's house so that he was able to sneak in there after midnight without any sign of breaking and entering, allegedly shoot the man 7 times, which is a huge sign of anger, a crime of passion, and then not steal anything, made me think that Krueger may have been abusing his drug counseling position to prey on young men, specifically on this suspect. A difficult truth we need to give voice to is that older gay men who make their entire identity revolve around being gay tend to like young boys with drug problems. And if they read Foucault, then they think the age of consent should be lowered anyway. The entire pop culture of gayness is literally the epitome of in-your-face, over-the-top, non-stop sexual energy. Older gays grooming younger gays or just younger men who are vulnerable is well known. Just read up on Harvey Milk or Ed Buck. It's interesting that Krueger literally tweeted this back in July of 2018, that quote, "The centuries-old smear that gay men are pedophiles is getting new life thanks to coordination between far-right news sites and far-right message boards. This egregious defamation is part of a strategy to target LGBTQ people with violence," end quote. Well, sadly, knowing how his story ends, methinks he doth protest too much. Seems the right knows exactly what kind of evil we're going up against. Now, also on another difficult note here that's not a gotcha at all, just something very sad, Krueger, in a previous social media post years before his death, talked about having been sexually abused as a 14-year-old himself. And statistically, we know a lot of abusers who abuse themselves, and a lot of gay men specifically dealt with that kind of abuse. So pray for the repose of Krueger's soul and for the repentance of Robert Davis, the teen. So before I bring on my next guest, I have 2 more stories to briefly touch on. One, there was a video of parents at a JCPenney department store in a Seattle suburb earlier this month chasing down and tackling a naked man who they say was being inappropriate around kids. As for how this guy got to be naked in the first place, well, I'm not quite sure either. By the time customers first spotted him, he was just down to his socks walking around, and authorities say the man was having a mental crisis and then later suffered a medical emergency. He was taken to the hospital and was charged with misdemeanor assault. Authorities say they have no evidence at this point of the suspect having tried to inappropriately touch any kids, but I'd say the fact he was naked in the first place is indecent exposure at the very least, and then when you figure that kids are the ones being exposed to that, well, I mean, there's kind of your proof. Anywho, lastly, in Summerville, South Carolina, we have insane video from a car chase that happened last month, but it's being reported on now, when the 54-year-old suspect, Roger Quentin Hill, refused to stop for a cop, pulling him over for expired tags. That decision turned into a high-speed chase, with the suspect hitting speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Toward the end of the chase, the suspect saw a deputy on the side of the road preparing to throw a spike strip in his path. And so the suspect veered off the road and toward the officer. Thankfully, the officer, as dash cam from a nearby unit shows, was able to dive at the last minute under the car as it caught air above him. So take a look, and just so you know, it is a little difficult to see due to the distance of the camera and its quality, but keep your eyes in the middle of the screen near the power lines.
Jaguar's coming right now.